We're actually installing today, so I'm just finishing up signing all the works that I did for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Bill Claps is signing his name to works of art that are the product of his current state of inspiration.
It's a contemporary take on Asian landscape and works that have been influenced by this Asian art, particularly Japanese prints, like Hiroshige, some of the Japanese printmakers from the 18th century.
His recent work is inspired by nature and his contemporary interpretation of nature motifs found in traditional Japanese prints and landscape painting.
The largest piece of the show. This is a piece that's called Aspen Grove. The source material is a photograph I took in Aspen, actually, Colorado, in a grove of aspen trees.
His technique starts with a color photograph, which he reduces to black and white.
I print it, and then I use a gold foil process where I use a heat process and apply it to the print. And where there's black in the print, it picks up the gold. And so when I take off this sheet of gold foil, I have essentially a negative. And I take that negative, and then I print the negative on a back background, so I get a negative and a positive in each image. So it's this kind of duality, this yin and yang, positive, negative, male, female theme that kind of runs through all my work.
The idea for this series, Pastoral Landscapes in the Present Tense, came as he experimented with images of aspen trees, which reminded him of bamboo in Japanese prints.
This is another aspen tree, a grove of aspen trees. This is the black and white image with the gold applied, and then this is the same image on a black background. This is the negative of the other image I just showed you. So I took the gold foil that was already applied to the other artwork, and then I put it on a black background, and then that picks up the negative. So you have a positive and negative.
For Bill, texture is an important aspect of the work.
And each time I do this, depending on how much pressure or temperature I use, I get a totally different texture based on the kind of texture that I want in each particular piece, based on the subject matter of the piece, or the density of the piece, or kind of the feeling I want to evoke.
The landscapes are a result of many months of taking photographs in remote areas of the United States. Growing up in New Jersey, he always loved camping and the outdoors and was an Eagle Scout.
I shoot a lot in the fall because there's a lot of colors, and then when you take the color out, you have a lot of density. A lot of gradations, actually.
A strong sense of history guides Bill's work, the idea that artists are influenced by those who came before them.
This is a piece that's called Ode to Claude, and this is a photograph of a lily pond in upstate New York, in Harriman State Park. Obvious reference to Claude Monet, and French Impressionists were very influenced by Japanese prints. Japanese being influenced by Chinese landscape painting, so this lineage goes all the way back, a couple thousand years to Chinese landscape painting, essentially. Here's another piece that's a little more graphic, and this actually, to me, looks very Japanese. It looks a lot like the Japanese prints, and it was taken from a source photo I took on the Hudson, on a marsh on the Hudson, kind of near West Point, upstate. And this is a photograph of bamboos in a bamboo forest, which was taken not in Kyoto, Japan, but in Rye, New York. There's actually a grove of bamboo trees in a preserve there. So this work right here is a oak tree that's part of an oak stand, pretty spectacular oak stand, in a park called Brookdale Park in New Jersey. The park was designed by Olmsted, who designed Central Park, and it's actually the park where I grew up, right next to it. So I spent a lot of time as a kid in this park. We used to live about 2 blocks away, and then I went to high school very close. My parents still live in this area.
Growing up in an artistic family, Bill was drawn towards creative endeavors since he was a child.
My grandfather he was an architect and a designer and he started off as a blacksmith, actually. and always did a lot of things with his hands. My brother is an industrial designer, and my sister started off as a textile designer. So we have a lot of creativity in the family.
Bill's work has evolved through the years. This current series evolved from an earlier series entitled It's All Derivative, in which he used the same process but with much different subject matter.
The idea was that I would take images throughout art history that artists previously had appropriated or copied or been influenced by artists before them, so that there was this kind of generational lineage that goes back. And then I did my interpretation of this image or motif that someone else had done, and then I used Morse code on top of it, which says, literally it says, it's all derivative in this particular series. It's very graphic, it's dots and dashes, and they can be abstracted or pulled and pushed, and you can fill the space in interesting ways.
Since then, Bill has also been working on a series called Art Speak, which he describes as more conceptual.
That's about the use of language in contemporary art and how the language that's used in the art world really sometimes doesn't really describe the work very well. And the series is really about exposing the artifice in contemporary art and how language is a lot of times used as a tool, as a real marketing tool for this marketing machine that push ideas or work that maybe otherwise would not get that kind of attention or exposure.
His 2014 Art Speak installation, called Enduring Conundrum, comments on the language used in contemporary art writing and critique. Bill features video of individuals from 5 different countries and all walks of life, repeating back complicated phrases of art speak from art-related press releases.
Art's contradictory ability.
Several generative metaphors.
Maintaining its status as an enduring conundrum.
Several generative metaphors have enabled them to think about art's contradictory ability to communicate certain of its contents while also withholding information by maintaining its status as an enduring conundrum.
The art world realizes that there's this kind of artifice about the language, but it continues to perpetuate itself. The writers and the critics really agree with it, although agree with, I think, the thesis behind the work, but for some reason it just keeps happening.
Paradoxically revealing.
And the way they read back these phrases and the way they expressed themselves said a lot about how they thought about like art and contemporary art in particular, and language. Some people were serious, some people thought it was funny.
Communicate certain of its
It kind of resonated with people, and they also got the humor in it because let's not take ourselves so seriously.
He then takes the English text of the phrases, translates them into Morse code, representing the code of the art world, and makes gilded artworks of the coded translations.
When you can create something from nothing, start from an idea and come out with something that has some kind of feeling to it, that surprises you. When you're surprised, that's really the kind of real joy.
The creative process is something that has always resonated with Bill.
I don't really plan these things. They evolve. People ask you, what are you inspired by? I'm inspired by everything, you know. You're influenced by everything, and once in a while you get an idea or you get hit with a flash, but other times it just evolves, or sometimes it's completely serendipitous.
As for future inspiration, Bill trusts it will continue.
I mean, you just have to follow your instincts, and I think everyone knows what they should be doing, but we don't always do it. So I think you just need to follow what you understand is the thing you need to do, and kind of try and filter out the societal influence and, you know, the practical monetary concerns. If you're doing something you love, I think that comes, and you'll be successful. Personally, I want to follow what I enjoy doing, and that usually leads me to a place that leads me to another place, and it's usually I end up at a good place in terms of doing something that has substance and that is interesting and aesthetically compelling.
He also has advice for others following their passions.
It's been a wild ride. I mean, I would never have projected in the future that I'd be doing this kind of work. So that's really interesting, and makes me wonder what's in front of me.